Good afternoon, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your second video blog of the day for Monday, December 21st, 2015, around 4:40 in the afternoon in Billerica, Massachusetts. It was a nice and sunny day for part of the day. Then the clouds came in and the temperatures were in the 50s. This was not winter weather. It feels more like early spring or middle of the fall. And no snowstorms in sight. Record heat coming on Thursday, close to 70. One little shout out. I'm shouting this out to Sam Edwards, who won a big wrestling tournament recently, and he goes to Chelmsford High School. A friend told me to send a shout out to him. So if you have, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, if you want any shout outs, private message me, and it will be shouted out in these video blogs. If you don't send me a shout out, I'm not going to be shouting it out to you. Some news to report. Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota is going to be out for the rest of the year with a sprained MCL in his knee. The Titans want to be careful because Marcus could be a future franchise quarterback, and he was doing decently well this year, even though the Titans suck. And Freddie Sanchez, former third baseman in 2006, National League batting champion, announced his retirement from baseball. He hasn't played since 2011, so he officially retired. He tried to make a comeback a couple of times, but he didn't make it. And the Boston Red Sox are going to retire Wade Boggs' number 26. He's going to be the 10th Red Sox player to have his number retired on the pesky poll. That's good. I hope the Red Sox retire Roger Clemens' number 21 next. And that's about it on news. My second video blog subject of the day is about the history of the ECW World Championship. ECW. This goes from 1992 to 2001. This is when the real ECW took place, not the WWE's brand ECW from 2006 to 2010. That was awful. And here is the history of the ECW World Championship. It started in April of 1992 as NWA's Eastern Championship Wrestling, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Its first champion was Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He won it on April 25th, 1992, but the next day he lost it to some guy named Johnny Hotbody, who held it for a few months until Superfly Jimmy Snuka won it back. Then in November, Superfly dropped it to the Magnificent Morocco to rekindle the WWE feud, and the Magnificent Morocco dropped it to the Sandman a short time later. This was when the Sandman had a surfer gimmick. Then the Sandman drops it back to the Magnificent Morocco again in April, and then the Magnificent Morocco holds it for a while, and this is when he formed the Dangerous Alliance with him, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, and the Dark Patriot, who was Doug Gilbert and Eddie Gilbert. They were part of the ECW version of the Dangerous Alliance. And in August of 1993, the Magnificent Morocco drops the ECW World title to Tito Santana. But Tito only held it 1 month until he dropped it to the franchise Shane Douglas at a house show by forfeit. I think Tito no-showed the card and stuff like that. That's not good. And franchise Shane Douglas only held it for a month until he dropped it to Sabu at the ECW Arena. And then Sabu dropped it about 2 months later, on the day after Christmas, 1993, to the hardcore legend Terry Funk. And Terry Funk was the ECW World Champion for the first couple of months of 1994. Terry Funk had defended that title when the lines were crossed in a triple threat match with Sabu and Shane Douglas, the franchise, and a lot of experts says this three-way dance for the ECW World title was probably the best match in North America in the 1990s. Some people agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it was a great match. And then Terry Funk loses the ECW title to the franchise Shane Douglas in one of those matches where there were so many wrestlers, and involved in the match was Road Warrior Hawk and Mr. Hughes and the Tasmaniac and Kevin Sullivan and Flyboy Rocco Rock and stuff. Shane Douglas wins it in March of 1994 and holds it for over 1 year. And on August 27th, 1994, when Shane Douglas won the NWA World title at the ECW Arena, Shane Douglas threw down the NWA World title because he did not want to be a part of an organization that died 7 years ago. He was referring to 1988 when, all intents and purposes, the last of the strong NWA territories, Jim Crockett Promotions, got bought out by Turner and got eventually rebranded to WCW. And Shane Douglas holds the only world championship, the ECW World title, the Extreme World Championship. And on September 1st, 1994, NWA's Eastern Championship Wrestling was folded. But in its place was Extreme Championship Wrestling. And its first world champion was Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas defended the ECW title against all comers. He was a great champion and stuff. He fought such wrestlers as Ron Simmons, Cactus Jack. He had a 60-minute time limit draw to Tully Blanchard at the ECW Arena, Sabu, and others. Shane Douglas dropped the ECW World title in April of 1995 to the Sandman, but this is a different Sandman. He's a smoking wrestler, has a Singapore cane, and like drinks beer. He was managed by woman, and Sandman held it for 6 months. He defended it against Marty Jannetty, Tommy Dreamer, and others, and he lost it to Mikey Whipwreck in October of 1995. Mikey Whipwreck was the underdog of ECW. He was like maybe Barry Horowitz of ECW and stuff. He was like an underdog, but he would somehow pull off the big victories and stuff. And Mikey held for about a month or so, but he dropped it back to the Sandman at the ECW Arena in December of 1995 in a triple threat match with Stunning Steve Austin. This was before he became Stone Cold. And the Sandman held it for 1 month, but in January of 1996, he dropped it to Raven. And Raven would hold the ECW World title for 9 months. Raven got into a long-running feud with the Sandman. Raven had his flock, including Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, Komodo Ranalea, and Laurie Fullerton at Sandman Life, and the Sandman son Tyler was influenced by Raven and stuff, and this was a long-running feud and stuff, which I might cover in a future video blog. And Raven was a great ECW World Champion, but he dropped it in October of 1996. He was not involved in the match because he was actually doing drug rehab. It was Sandman pinned Stevie Richards in a tag team match, which was Stevie Richards and the Bulldozer Brian Lee, primetime Brian Lee, against Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. And the Sandman held it for about 2 months, but Raven regained it and stuff. And Raven's second reign of ECW World Champions was not as impressive and stuff because he was going to WCW. And on the first pay-per-view of ECW Barely Legal in April of 1997, Terry Funk, who was 53 years old, beat Stevie Richards and Sandman in a triple threat match for the ECW World title, to get the right to face off against Raven for the ECW World title. Terry Funk wins, and Terry Funk beats Raven with help from Tommy Dreamer. Terry Funk, at 53 years old, becomes the ECW World Champion. And a minute later, the power went off. Terry Funk was, this was his last year in professional wrestling, 1997, he said, but that was just something to make up. It was BS. And he held it for about 4 months. Then he dropped it to Sabu in a barbed wire match, which was so awesome, but so brutal that ECW owner Paul Heyman never had another barbed wire match again on ECW. And then Sabu only holds it to a week into the franchise. Shane Douglas beats Terry Funk and Sabu in a triple threat match at the second ECW pay-per-view. And Shane Douglas holds the ECW World title for 2 months, but he drops it to fellow triple threat member Bam Bam Bigelow at Queens, New York in October of 1997. Bam Bam only held it for about a month or so. Then the franchise Shane Douglas regains it in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at November 1997. And for the next year, Shane Douglas is the ECW World Champion. In 1998, the ECW World title was not lost by Shane Douglas. He fought all comers and stuff, but halfway through the year, Shane Douglas suffered a serious injury. He couldn't wrestle half the year and stuff. But there was one man looking for the ECW World title. It was Taz. Taz really wanted the ECW World title. He made his own ECW World title, was FTW, which meant fuck the world. And Taz was stalking Shane Douglas and stuff, and eventually Taz got his shot at the ECW World title and Shane Douglas, and he beat him at guilty as charged 1999 in January of 1999. And Taz held the title for the next 10 months. He defended it against Sabu, the Dudley Boys, and several other wrestlers. He was a fighting ECW World Champion. But the WWE called Taz, he signed a contract, so he had to lose the ECW World title. At September of 1999, Taz loses the ECW World title in a triple threat match between Masahiro Tanaka and Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome becomes the new ECW World Champion. He's managed by Jeff Judge. And for the next 3 months, Mike Awesome was very awesome. His favorite move was powerbombing people through the table. And he lost it to Masahiro Tanaka at a taping for ECW on TNN in December of 1999, but he lost it 1 week later back to Mike Awesome. And Mike Awesome continued to reign supreme as ECW World Champion for a while. Mike Awesome was set to have a long-running feud with the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. But Rob Van Dam got hurt, and it was postponed. And Mike Awesome continued to be ECW World Champion until he got a call from WCW, and Mike Awesome showed up on Nitro in April of 2000, but he was still technically the ECW World Champion. They had to get the belt off him. And in Indianapolis, Indiana, in April of 2000, at an ECW on TNN taping, Taz, who was on loan from the WWE, beats Mike Awesome for the ECW World Championship. It was the first time in history that a contracted WWE wrestler beat a contracted WCW wrestler in an ECW ring for the ECW World title. But Taz only held it for a week or so because he had to drop it because he was still technically a WWE wrestler. So Taz dropped it in the ECW arena to Tommy Dreamer on April 22nd, 2000. And it was an emotional night because Tommy Dreamer was ECW and stuff. He was with the company through thick and thin and stuff, and Tommy Dreamer only held it for a few minutes until Just Incredible beat him for the ECW World Championship, and Just Incredible had a 6-month reign with the ECW World Championship. But this is one of the time that there was rumors ECW was folding and the checks were bouncing and stuff, and a lot of talent was leaving ECW and stuff, and you didn't know when ECW was going to fold or not. And in October of 2000, Just Incredible lost the ECW World Championship to Jerry Lynn, who deserved it because he was a journeyman wrestler, but he only held it for 1 month. And in November of 2000, he lost it to Mr. Old School, Steve Corino. Steve Corino held it for 2 more months, the ECW World title. Then at the last ECW pay-per-view, he dropped it to Sandman. Sandman became ECW World Champion once again, but it was short-lived because a few minutes later, Rhino, gore on the Sandman, and Rhino becomes new ECW World Champion. He would hold the ECW World Championship for 74 days until the promotion was officially folded in March of 2001. And the ECW World Championship was inactive for 5 years until it got revitalized by WWE, but that's a different version of ECW. It's not the real version, it's the WWE version, which was pretty awful in my humble opinion. And the ECW World Championship had great prestige and stuff. It had some great champions like Shane Douglas, Raven, the Sandman, and others. And I think ECW should have had a world champ. Sabu should have had maybe a long run as champion, not 2 months or 8 days. And Tommy Dreamer should have had a longer reign as ECW World Champion, in my humble opinion, maybe a few months. And they should have gave the ECW World Championship at some point to Rob Van Dam, but he was hurt. But he had the ECW TV Championship. That was his championship. And the ECW World Championship had a great history, in my humble opinion. Only an 8-year history, but it was awesome. And that's about it on this video blog. And the third and final video blog of the night will be about the late great Hockey Hall of Famer and coach, Art Ross. Keep calm, everybody. And I'm a Julie Bottom guy, Molly Rosenblatt of WCCO CBS 4 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Roxanne has nice legs. Elizabeth Hutso so stunning, and she has nice legs as well. And Amy Swansea's the best. And in the words of Dee Patel last week, no bus. See you later, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Bye.